Only on America Reports, a photo that we think you might find interesting. The back of Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg's head walking into Senate Majority Leader John Thune's office. This happened just moments ago. That meeting just one day after a jury in Los Angeles ruled against Meta in that landmark social media trial. We will wait to see if there's any headlines that come out of this tete-a-tete. Sandra.
Okay. Jimmy Kimmel sparking new backlash after taking a shot at DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin, with critics saying the joke also mocks blue-collar workers.
Markwayne Mullin was a low-level MMA fighter and a plumber. That's right. We have a plumber protecting us from terrorism now. It worked for Super Mario. Why not Markwayne? If Trump is going to keep picking these unqualified people to run the department, why not have more fun with it? I mean, next time, instead of Markwayne, how about Little Wayne for Homeland Security?
Wow, let's bring in Ben Domenech on that. Fox News contributor and host of the Big Ben Show. Ben, good to see you. That obviously that is something, and seen as a bit of an elitist dig.
Yes, it is. And first off, let me just say that I don't think that there's a single American with a sense of humor that doesn't believe that Jimmy Kimmel could easily be replaced, not just by a plumber, but I think actually his former colleague Adam Carolla, who was a carpenter for more than a decade, would do a much better job hosting that show. But look, Markwayne Mullin is, I had the ability to go down to Oklahoma and profile him a number of years ago. When he was 20 years old, he was going to college. His dad's health took a turn for the worse. So he dropped out in order to run the family business, which was a plumbing company, had 6 people as employees. He built that into an HVAC business that employs more than 150 plus people, and became, a millionaire while doing it, and because he understood business. He was motivated to get into politics because of Democratic policies that crush small businesses, particularly Obamacare, and really became a pillar of his community with all sorts of investments in that community that have brought jobs into a very impoverished part of Oklahoma. Those are all admirable things. And I just think that if Democrats had someone like Markwayne on their side of the aisle, they would be lauding that. They would be holding it up. They would be saying, look at this salt-of-the-earth person who we've brought in to do things. Instead, what they have is a bunch of people who know all the words to fair Harvard. And that's just not what America wants in terms of its leadership anymore. That's the reason why Donald Trump is back in the White House.
Well, some big names have waded into the conversation when it comes to politics and comics. And Vince Vaughn takes on Jimmy Kimmel preaching politics. Listen.
I think that the talk shows, to a large part, became really agenda-based.
Yeah.
They were going to evangelical people to what they thought. You know what I mean? And so people just rejected it because it didn't feel authentic. It felt like they had an agenda. And it stopped being funny, and it started feeling like I was in a class I didn't want to take.
I guess he's saying out loud what a lot of people have been thinking for a long time.
Look, I love late night. I want late night to be good again. I mean, it really is terrible. And Sandra, I mean, it's just become a place for people to spout off their political opinions. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that it's not even a good, it wouldn't even be a good post on X. I mean, this is stuff that's absurd. It's no longer filling that kind of uniting value of humor in our lives that I think we all prize as Americans. And for someone like Kimmel to go down this road again, it's not surprising, but it is depressing to a certain extent. Because again, if there was a different letter after Markwayne Mullin's name, I'm sure Jimmy Kimmel would be inviting him to come on the show and asking him for advice on how to deal with his own plumbing, given how much crap he spews.
Yeah, Gene Simmons even weighed in, paraphrasing. He said, "Do your art and shut up." He said, "People don't want to be lectured when they relax at night by people who live in the big mansions and drive their Rolls Royces." Final thought from you, Ben.
Look, I hope in the future that we can get back to a late night that actually does its job, which is making people laugh and away from this kind of ridiculous Democratic talking point parade that we have to deal with every night here in America.
All right, Ben, good to have you on the program today. Thank you very much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.